Hey guys, welcome to another Double Tap on YouTube. I'm Steven Scott.
And I'm Shaun Priest. Hello.
And today we're going to get into an interesting conversation, I think, about these new smart mobility devices we're hearing so much about. We've been talking on the show about Glide, of course. That is from the company Glidance, a very interesting new product, which is, I think, probably the most interesting out of all the smart mobility devices because it's so different. The way we use it is so different. And of course, there's the standard Smart Cane style of smart device coming out as well in the form of the WeWalk Smart Cane 2 we've talked about on recent shows. And with us today to talk about all this is someone who's actually had hands-on with one of those products, possibly the other, I don't know, we'll find out, but certainly I know one of them, and that is our good friend Kayaker. He's called Scott to his friends. So we call him Kayaker, I believe. Is that right, Kayaker?
You can call me whatever you want, Stephen. We've met in person, had dinner, drinks, laughs, jokes, whatever you feel comfortable with. That's
right. And we can definitely take off at least one or two of those things. The food, though, was definitely something to be desired in that restaurant. We'll never go there again. If you're in Glasgow, don't go near that city centre restaurant. It was terrible. Okay, there we go. That's that.
All right, TripAdvisor, calm down. Stay on topic.
Okay, welcome to Double Tap. Listen, Scott, I know you were at it was NFB convention you were at this year, right?
Correct. It was NFB. They had a huge exhibit hall, and Glide was doing their demos there. You'd sign up for a 30-minute slot, and they would walk you through a three-mode demo, and it was great. You got to see their latest tech in action. So that's what I did. And yeah.
I mean, it's very interesting because obviously this is a unique device. Can you describe it for us? Because you've had hands-on, right? So we can get a sense. I mean, there's been talk of it, for example, being like a vacuum cleaner you're pushing down the street. That's been one rather, I think, unkind way of putting it. But you've had hands-on. What is this thing actually like?
Well, I would say it sort of feels like a kettlebell weight. It's relatively small. It's got 7-inch wheels. It has two 7-inch wheels on either side that are pretty sturdy, that would easily go over a curb or a sidewalk. And I'd say that it has a relatively thick handle, maybe 1.5-inch diameter coming out from it that telescopes out. That's sort of like what I would consider a spade handle. It's sort of a closed loop or like a guide dog harness. And that's where you hold it with one hand. It has haptic feedback there. The base unit itself has its own handle for carrying. So if you need to pick it up, it's got a very convenient handle. Imagine a carry-on trolley that has like a separate handle on the side that you can just pick it up. Let's see. It's and that was the new prototype that they basically printed with a solid printer, 3D printer, and sort of that's the goal that they're going for. It felt smooth. There was no sharp edges on it. It felt very very well done, actually. It didn't feel kludgy. It felt solid and well designed.
Which is
like
great.
A lot of thought went into the process of everything.
And considering this is still in the, prototype phase, I suppose it still is, isn't it?
My understanding is because they're still trying to reduce the weight and they're trying to get the final form factor. The demo model that was on the table that I could touch and feel and get the sense, and that's what I'm describing, is the model that they hope to put into production. That's like the external shell that they want to use. So that's what it will feel like to the end user. I think the demo unit that they were doing had a little more nuts and bolts exposed, as I understand it.
As you'd expect.
Yeah.
Could you collapse the handle down into it?
Yes, not all the way. I suspect it probably stuck out maybe about a foot.
Okay, not too bad. Like a folded cane then, I suppose.
Yeah, about the size of a folded cane. Yeah,
I'm just thinking when you get to where you want to be, how do you store it away under a table or wherever?
Yeah, I think it would pretty easily fit under maybe an airplane seat, or easily picked it up and put it on a train luggage rack or something like that. I think it's very easy to do. It's not too heavy either. At least it wasn't for me, but it might be for some. I think their target weight was 5 kilos. Is that what they're going for? Or 2 kilos? I don't even remember, but it's relatively light.
And when you're actually using it, so you got the 30-minute demo, you got the chance to try it out. And I guess there's a little bit of, you're kind of testing a prototype here. So in some ways you're kind of experiencing it, but also potentially you're not, because, it might be quite different by the time it's finally released. Did you get the feeling this was something that you could use every day? I mean, what was that experience like using it? And you mentioned the different modes. Talk us through those.
Sure. Well, to answer your first question, I don't think it's something that one would use every day. I think you would pick and choose when you wanted to use it. It's going to be great for some circumstances, and I think it's going to be less useful for others. It certainly requires some bulk to move around. So if you're just going for a short outing, I don't think you're going to choose to use the Glide necessarily. I think you might use something, faster and quicker. I think it's almost analogous to what you might use your guide dog for. If you're going for a longer walk or an unknown situation, I think those are the situations that it will work well in. And the modes in the demo that they tested, I said there were 3 stages to the demo. The first one was sort of just to get a feel for it. So he basically, the person who was giving the demo basically controlled it in remote control mode, and you would push it, and it pushes beautifully well on these ball bearings. It was very easy to push forward. I don't think it'll be too hard to push up a hill, nor will it be too hard to control going downhill. It felt very smooth, and the wheels moved delightfully easily. And he would turn the wheels a little bit and steer me around the room. And there was gradual turns, sharp turns, and then there was also the braking feature, so you could feel what it was like when the wheels stopped when you're about to hit an obstacle. So that was just to get a feel for the device. The second phase was sort of I think they call it tracking mode or something. Basically, it will track onto something. It'll take you to an object, and one of the objects it can take you to is a person. So it was actually in follow the person mode. I call it like the heat seeker missile. It locks onto the person, and you just push it, and it steers you and keeps that person in its sights, and it'll avoid obstacles as that person is walking around the room. So that was very interesting as well. So you could imagine using that if you're following someone in an airport. You can just lock on ahead of them, just push it, and they'll guide you, and it'll be fine. No more need to do the sighted guide approach or something like that. And it's great for, I think that use case is great for crowded, narrow things where sometimes you can't go 2 abreast or 1.5 abreast, where you're trying to walk through tight passages.
Yeah.
That was a very neat experience because it literally just followed the person in 90-degree turns, slight turns, and again avoiding obstacles as it was going, so it wouldn't steer you into something. It wouldn't blindly just get you stuck. And the final phase was what they call sort of freestyle mode, and that's basically complete obstacle detection when you know where you're going to go and you have a sense of where you're going. So the way that demo worked is there's an obstacle course set up in the room, and you basically were told to go towards where you hear the music playing. So you push towards the music, and all of a sudden it would jog you a little bit to the left to avoid something, and then maybe jog you to the right and turn around as you were still sort of steering it yourself towards the music, but it would correct your actions, as I said, much like a guide dog would do. And that experience just really blew my mind. I'm not a guide dog user, but I did have a test with a guide dog when I was out the leader dog doing the O&M experience. And so I know what that feels like and how comfortable it is when you have that confidence that the dog's there using its eyes. I had that same sense of confidence pushing the Glide where I could relax a little bit, and I had confidence that it would get me to the right spot without having me fall downstairs or crash into a door or an obstacle. It was great.
Wow. Okay, that's an interesting statement in itself because, Steven, you've been saying for the longest time this tech isn't to replace a guide dog and a white stick. But, I mean, the fact of the matter is, does it give you that confidence? I totally understand the technology is available that can lock onto an object and track it and all that and, steer you around things. But it's all about the sort of relaying the movement back to you, firstly, and secondly, having the confidence in it. And it sounds like it did, it passed both of those things, Kayaker. It
did. Now, as a skeptic, I will say this is a very controlled environment. They set up the obstacle course specifically for things that they probably knew it would work. So I think they were pretty confident with the demos that they offered. Yeah. But I see a lot of potential there. As I said, I'm dying to get this in the real world and do some more testing to see what it actually is capable of. outside on city streets, getting around things. I was just in Boston over the weekend, and I wish I had something like this to help me navigate the streets of Boston. I wish I had it. I needed that. It was I would have felt a lot more confident and less reliant on sort of Good Samaritans.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I get that feeling. Yeah, I totally understand that. And, I use my white cane. I wouldn't say I love my white cane, but I don't like people decrying it either. I mean, it's a really useful tool to me. I wouldn't get out without it. It's as simple as that. Yeah. And I think we're all in that boat together on that one.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's almost like we're looking for something in the middle between cane and dog. Mm-hmm. And I think this is why, I've talked a lot about not wanting it to be seen as a replacement for. I actually don't think it should be seen that way. I think it should be seen as a third category. You've got cane, standard dumb cane, which just does the job, which is great for a lot of people and helps us all. Dog, which is wonderful, of course. Essentially cane, for people who don't know this, a cane, its purpose is to locate obstacles and help you find your way around them. Whereas a guide dog will avoid those obstacles. And this can do both, by the sounds of it. They can kind of do both, but without the dog component, which for a lot of people, getting access to a guide dog could be challenging. Waiting lists are long. And on top of that, a lot of people can't have a dog for lots of different reasons. Maybe they're illnesses, maybe they're allergic to dogs, maybe their religion precludes them from having one. There's lots of reasons why someone may not have a dog. So there needs to be something else. So it's not about replacing the guide dog, it's about offering an alternative. And it sounds like this is getting them. I mean, you've said this on this show and on the radio show, you said, and it stuck with me both times, that if you've had a guide dog, this will feel familiar to you. That really sticks with me.
Yes, it definitely will. I think the only subtle difference is whereas a guide dog is held off to your side, usually your left hand or your non-dominant hand, your non-cane hand, this one goes straight in front of you. So that's really the only difference. But that feel of the harness and the jolt of the steering, I think a guide dog user will become very familiar with, and they'll take to it very naturally.
I tell you what, I'm more interested in this. And it's funny, the more people we talk to, because we've been talking about Glide for quite a while now. And initially it was a bit, we were all a bit skeptical, weren't we? I think about, well, firstly, the form factor of this thing and how we were going to look, a bit of vanity involved. But the more people...
And we should come back to that. We should definitely come back to that because I think that's a big part of this.
Well, yes, definitely is. But I was going to say that the more people we talk to, the more people are saying, you know what, actually, this has got potential. This is exciting. And you, when we were talking before, Kayaker, you were saying you came into this demo of Glide being skeptical of it. And it completely changed your mind after the demo. Is that right?
Well, I was a little skeptical, but I sort of went in with no expectations of what this thing was going to do. I'm like, okay, let's see the new tech. And I didn't do a lot of research ahead of time into it, but I just knew it was something I wanted to see. So I went in with an open mind and was blown away. As I said, some of the other people in my party who were traditional O&M instructors came in with a very skeptical view, like poo-pooing it, and this is no replacement for good mobility skills and a guide dog and da-da-da. But seeing the demo, I think some of them were actually saying, okay, this can fit into the arsenal of tools that a blind person can use to navigate the world. And I think that's the right way to look at it. It's just another tool in our belts for certain situations that we can use. It might not be appropriate for everything, but boy, it's a convenient, easy way to get around in some situations.
Yeah, well, I mean, no one builds products based on who won't buy them.
Yeah,
people build products based on who might and probably will buy them, right? And of course, this product will not be for everybody. The price point might put people off, although I think it's certainly at the lower end of what I've seen. Some of these devices, especially when you think about something like BiPed, I think you had hands on with as well, and we'll maybe talk about that as well. The fact that this device was like thousands upon thousands of dollars.
Right.
This currently I think there's a bit of a deal going on at the moment, but ultimately it's around $1,500 US is the price of this
correct
new device, this new Glide, and of course there are welcoming offers and all that kind of thing going on, but that's roughly what the price is going to land on. It's interesting because when people, and I've heard this argument before, and it does tend to come from people who are O&M instructors who are traditional in their approach because that's what their training teaches them to do. But it's interesting to me because I often think a guide dog in some ways because it avoids obstacles, in some ways, does actually the job of taking away a lot of those important skills of knowing where things are. I actually find with my cane, I know more about the layout of somewhere because I'm literally, like a moth trying to find its way into my house in the evening. It's navigating its way in through every possible crevice on my outside doors. And it knows the route as a result. And I feel that way when I'm in a shopping mall. I feel that way when I'm going somewhere. I feel I've got a layout in my head. A guide dog just takes you right past that. That's not a bad thing. But I just think it's a different way of navigating. And in some ways, therefore, those O&M skills that you learn would not be required with a guide dog.
I think that's a valid statement. I think guide dogs are very good at navigating paths that you take regularly.
Yeah, they do it for you.
Yeah, and you can go on autopilot to some extent and relax. Excuse me. And I think that is that's what's so nice about the guide. It'll give you back the enjoyment of actually taking a walk again with let down your defenses. With my cane, I'm constantly at 110% awareness of my surroundings. I can't. Yeah. You can't lower your guard. You just have to be constantly listening and constantly aware of where you are, and it's stressful. It's stressful. I came back
and it's sore, right? I mean, I have an issue with my left hand being, and it's so irritating that it's my left hand because that's the cane. That's the hand I use the cane with, and the problem I have with that is that hand is weakening, and so therefore when I'm going out, it's physically painful to go out. So suddenly I trip out. Everyone says, "Oh, go for a walk. It's lovely outside. Go for a walk." You're like, "Yeah, this to me is a nightmare. This is no enjoyment in this."
I agree.
I was telling Shaun just the other week, my wife and I went out, and I had taken her guide dog, not obviously as a guide dog. I just had her on her lead, but she was on my left because she goes on the left, so there's no point changing things around and confusing her. So I kept her on the left, and she kind of, although she didn't have the harness on, she did kind of do the job of guiding. I guess because they probably don't want to walk into cars either, right? I mean, even if the harness is off, they've probably figured out, I don't like this idea.
Mine does.
Well, yeah,
so it just does it for me.
That's not a guide dog. But that's the point, right? That they've kind of got it built into their heads because of the training. Yeah. So, we're off having this walk, and it was such a pleasant walk. I really enjoyed it, and it made me think, I'd love to have a guide dog, but then I just think, then they don't give me a guide dog, so I'm never out enough. I don't go anywhere.
There's responsibilities to that as well.
But then this thing comes along. And suddenly I'm like, well, hang on a minute. This could be the middle point. But I've got to get to this issue around the device. Is this just in my head, guys? Is this just stuck in my mind that, this is so different to the cane, it's so different to the dog, that people out there, and let's be honest, when you're blind, you get a lot of interaction with the public. Not always warranted, not always wished for, but it does happen. And can you imagine going out with this thing? And either people thinking, oh, he can't be blind anymore, he's just bought a vacuum cleaner, he's taking for a walk. Or am I overthinking this, Scott? I mean, you've had hands on. Does it feel that
it is different? It is different. This is something completely new, and I think the general public will need to be educated on it, what it is and what its purpose is, because when you have a guide dog or you have a white cane, people are aware of it. I mean, we have the White Cane Mobility Day. Guide dogs, people get those devices and they can say, okay, this person, is blind. But with this device that they've never seen before, heck, I haven't seen this before. It's brand new to me. It's different, and the ease at which it allows you to get around could make you seem almost sighted. So it's sort of a double-edged sword. You still need people out there to realize that you're blind and can't see and can do damage, and they better stop because you can't see them or plow into them.
But there is one more point on this that surprised me, because I've been talking about it for, as I said before, a long time. I didn't know there was a subscription cost with this as well, Kayaker.
Yes. When I got the pre-order pricing email, the hardware was $1,500, and then looks like about a $20 monthly subscription. And as of right now, I don't have a good answer to what you get with the subscription versus with just the hardware, or is the subscription sort of mandatory to use the device? I gather that for some of the more advanced integrations using the cloud AI technology, the server farm, that subscription gives you access to the more advanced navigation features. But some of the obstacle avoidance and stuff that runs locally on the machine will still work. I'm actually going to the next Glide webinar Q&A, and I hope to ask these exact questions and have answers for you soon.
Well, I mean, I've got to say as well, and I want to move on to some other products you've seen or been hearing about, because there's lots to talk about in this space. But that's one thing I do think is great. You know, the communication that this company has had with the community all the way along. Mm-hmm. And of course, its founder is blind himself. So, you know, that I think has lent this project so much more credibility. And that's not really to do down any other work anyone else is doing. I don't mean to do that. But there is something about, and we all know it, in the blind world, you know, you walk into a room, and I was give an example of this where I had been among a group of tech trainers maybe 10 years ago, going into a room and sitting down with a bunch of people who were older, who'd lost their vision. And every one of them sat there and listened to the tech trainers talk about technology. And then I spoke up and I said, no, look, I'm blind, I use. And as soon as I said that, I didn't even finish the sentence. And suddenly all the ears and the faces and all the heads just rose as if to say, hello, one of us.
Yeah.
You can help.
One of us.
Lead us to the promised iPhone or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it did instantly, because I think there's something in that. You know, it's just that there's blind people at the heart of it. Whenever you see a review of something and there's a blind person, you're like, oh, tell me more, you know, because you know then there's truth behind it, there's credibility behind it. So I again, that's not to do down the work of anybody else. It really isn't. But there is just that is true. I want to mention some other products because look, WeWalk. We've talked a lot about WeWalk. We've had the founders and the guys who've created WeWalk on the show as well. Did you get hands-on with that at all?
I actually did not get hands-on with the WeWalk. Yeah, so you'll go ahead. Tell me what you know about it, and have you been hands-on?
I mean, I think it's a slightly different device in the sense that it's, you know, this is not going to navigate
This is the smart cane,
you.
right? This goes on the top of your cane for sort of LiDAR sensors, as I recall, right?
That's right. So you've got the sensors in there, but for two purposes. One is to give you information as you walk along using AI. It can actually talk to you. It can give you information about, say, a restaurant you're coming up to. You can ask questions about it. You know, essentially it's AI in a cane. That's one way to look at it. It has got the navigation capabilities built in through the accompanying app, and you can use it to navigate you around and, you know, to bus stops. And there's lots of cool things you can do with the app that goes with it. And if that's not enough for you, you have got the ability to get information about what is at head height or chest height, which, again, a lot of these devices are beginning to have. And if it's a smart cane, you would kind of hope it has just a bit more than, you know, telling you what time it is or, you know, telling you what when the restaurant closes. Although that's good, you know, you can probably get that information from your phone if you really wanted it. Although I do understand that one of the selling points here is that you don't have to pull your phone out to talk and use AI. Again, you're in a busy city centre like London, England, where, you know, highest number of phone thefts. You probably want to keep your phone out of reach. So for that reason, something like this could be really useful. But that is your standard cane, right? It's got smart features in it, but it's a standard cane. Then there's something like BiPed, which, again, this is not necessarily, I would consider, a navigation device, but it is about telling you what's around you, or at least what is around you in terms of your spatial awareness. Is that right?
Yeah. The BiPed, I did talk to those guys at NFB, and you know, it's sort of a chest harness that gives you the sensory and AI stuff that's the feedback for obstacles ahead of you at various levels. Again, everyone is going towards the AI technique, so they're trying to build this stuff in. But the interesting part is I still wonder, you know, we have the smartest, most powerful devices in our pockets with our iPhones, and a lot of these companies are, I just hope these products don't become sort of like the rabbit of the mainstream, sort of like taking something that's really an app, putting it in a product, and just sort of, you know, having it fail miserably. I mean, just
to be clear, you're talking about the Rabbit R1 device.
Yes,
right?
sorry, yes, not
an actual rabbit. Yeah,
no, not a. Sorry, the AI Rabbit R1. Yeah. So, you know, which isn't accessible at all, but you know, was received with a lot of hoopla, shall we say, and excitement. But I think when people started getting it, they realized that, hey, this is really just something I already have on my phone. Why am I using my phone?
I think that's a valid argument as well. And I do have that worry about WeWalk as well. And just to be clear, the only sensor on the WeWalk cane is a sonar sensor for those obstacles above chest height and head height. And basically controls that interact with your phone and therefore just the WeWalk app. Now, it's not to say it's not of use, of course not. But again, it comes back to your point. How much is just basically just down to the software, which we could use anyway.
Right.
It's an alternative. To me, it's like an upgrade to the white cane. That's what I think of WeWalk as. It's like taking your white cane and upgrading it. Now, the issue I had with the first edition was the build itself. It was too big. It was too bulky. It wasn't something I would have necessarily enjoyed using. It made weird noises. It had a horn on it for some reason. I had no idea why. That was funny though, but it was weird.
That drags me in. A clown.
Get out of my way.
That did appeal. It did appeal. I used it a couple of times, and I think it freaked people out because suddenly they thought that an 18-wheeler was behind them because it wasn't quiet. Yeah. But all this kind of stuff was okay. But they have really listened. And when what they've built into the second edition, which I think is more appealing, and certainly if I was going to have one of these things, it would be as an alternative. I would probably use it. I would probably use the WeWalk Smart Cane too, only because it has the same style and design as a regular white cane, but I get that additional functionality. So I can see the value in it. And the other good thing is because it's essentially the top section of a cane, if your cane gets broken, it's not, you're not going to have to pay the same amount of money again unless you've damaged the top section. If your cane gets snapped by a cyclist who crosses you on the road, then the cane will be destroyed perhaps, but the WeWalk remains. So that's good news. I like that fact. There's lots of these. I think about things like as well the Ultra Cane, which has been around for many years, and it has done a lot of this work and often gets forgotten about in these conversations, but it's been around for a long time. The Mini Guide, a lot of people talk about as a navigation device for walking around, almost like not quite a replacement for the cane. I don't think we'd go that far, although some might. I've had mixed reviews. Have you guys heard about the Mini Guide?
Yeah, the Mini Guide, our friend Garth loves it. It seems like, again, it's another tool in your belt, and it seems very useful for things like finding a way if there's an obstacle in front of you. You can sort of get a sense of where your space is. If you're looking for an open hallway to one side or the other, you can certainly use it to sort of get a sense of how far away the open space is.
So how's that working? Is it like something handheld that you just sort of shoot?
Yeah, it's like a flashlight torch. Yep, exactly like that little pen light. And think of it more like a color, like a light detector sensor on Seeing AI, except it's for depth.
Got you.
Yeah,
it's the only sonar device I think that really has taken off, the Mini Guide. I mean, we've had the Sunu band before. We've had vibrating sunglasses, sonar sunglasses. They've been around for decades, right? But the Mini Guide, even that, yes, it is popular. People do like the Mini Guide. But all of this stuff, you mentioned the Ultra Cane and things before, none of this stuff has really taken off, I would say. It's still very niche, even in our small community as it is. I think the only thing really so far that is lots of people are excited about, as the more it comes to fruition, is the Glide. Why is that? There's got to be something behind that.
It's brand new, and there's nothing like this before. It's almost like a self-driving car for a sidewalk or indoor space. That's how I see it. It's the same type of technology that's been out there for.
Yeah, but you could argue that the BiPed that you mentioned before, a chest wearable full of LiDAR sensors and cameras, that's brand new, right? I tried the Lumen over at Zero Project. I tried the Lumen, which is a headset which does kind of the same thing with the self-driving car technology. That's what we're talking about. And you could argue the Glide is using the same technology. But what is it? What is it about that that's got us so excited over the other things?
For me, what makes it so exciting is the number of problems that it solves rather than just a single problem. So there's a lot of use cases where the Glide could be potentially useful. Indoor situations, outdoor situations, navigation situations where you're integrating to like Apple Maps or Google Maps. All these different scenarios are problems that it may solve, or at least, they're alluding that these will solve these problems. It's we're still in beta. We haven't seen it all in the real world, but imagine just, going out of your hotel in a city and saying, I want to go to the train station, and poof, it takes you there as if it were a guide dog, but the guide dog knows where it's going. It knows where the train station is. It will, steer you across those intersections and take you on the right streets and turn down the right roads for you. That's the joy of it. You're not telling your guide dog, okay, I think we're going right now to get to the train station. It does it all. And if that is true, if that promise comes true, it's going to be revolutionary.
Very true. If they could just make a bigger one that I could sit on, that would be amazing.
Well, I mean, all joking aside.
Segue first.
No. All joking aside, when I was at CES back in 2020, early 2020, I remember having a conversation with someone about just this, because I thought, what happens if someone is blind or severely low vision and then begins to have mobility problems later in life and needs, for example, say a mobility scooter to get around? Yeah. How does that work for someone? And we had conversations at that time with companies who were developing these sort of driverless, well, not driverless, obviously, but you know what I mean, autonomous vehicles that you could put, tell it where you want to go and off it would go like a car. So, I can see that coming. So basically what I'm saying, Shaun, is your future is safe. You'll be fine. You're able to have a self-driving autonomous car to take you to the butty shop.
Actually an excellent point for a throwaway comment I just made there, but you're absolutely right. Wheelchairs with this sort of technology built in. There was a time where I was using a walking frame for a good few months, couldn't use my white stick. Anything like that which can help. It's exciting times. But I think it's safe to say, though, and Kayaker's brought this up, this is all great on exhibition floors and, in controlled environments. All of this stuff is great potential until we get it out in the real world and we see what it can actually do in real conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we look forward to hearing all of our thoughts on these. I certainly hope to get hands-on with the Glidance, or the Glide device, I should say, from Glidance. Yeah. And, I'll be intrigued to hear what you guys think if you get your hands on as well. You can tell us your thoughts down below in the comments, or you can drop us an email, feedback@doubletaponair.com. What do you think? What's the future of smart mobility? Is this it? Is this where it's going? I mean, where do we go from here? What would you like to see next? Because, goodness, you think how far we could go when you start combining AI and AR and the ability, even just mixed reality altogether, and then the autonomy part, what that is going to do, what that means for mobility, not just in the way of actually taking us from place to place, but us having some control over that decision to go left and right, change our direction. We're not being taken somewhere, we're actually deciding to go. It takes me back to a very early prototype of a driverless car shown off at NFB one year, where there was a suggestion of using various sounds, beeps and boops to sort of you drive the car yourself, and the car responds, but essentially is helping you get to where you're going. So blind people could drive cars. I remember
that would freak the public out.
Yeah, I know. And at the time, I thought that is ridiculous. But what it was getting at, on the heart of the conversation, was we want to maintain some independence and control. We don't just want to be dragged around. Yeah. So that's a big part of it. Anyway, your thoughts on this? Feedback@doubletaponair.com. 1-877-803-4567. Such an interesting topic. We could talk about this all day. And don't forget, we're on doubletaponair.com. You can find our content there as well. Kayaker, come back soon. It's been really, really a lot of fun talking about this.
My pleasure. Anytime.
That's it for another Double Tap on YouTube. Thank you, Shaun.
Thank you. Bye-bye.